$28,962,480. That's not a company's valuation. It's the amount of cash being wagered right now on who will be the Democratic nominee for president in 2028. We're talking about one of the largest pools of capital focused on a single political event that's still years down the road. The stakes are already massive. But here's where it gets kind of weird. These markets show huge contradictions. For instance, the market is almost certain that Elon Musk stays the world's wealthiest person. But at the same time, it gives him only a 9% chance of actually visiting Mars. So what gives? We're going to break down what these signals really mean. Drop a like and share if you find this valuable. All right, let's start where the money is screaming the loudest. And right now, it's not tech, it's not energy. The single biggest market by sheer volume is all about politics. Yeah, you heard that right. The number one market is the 2028 Democratic nomination. This tells us that big money is trying to get an edge on long-term political outcomes way ahead of everyone else. And listen, within that market, the money is not spread out. It's piling in on California Governor Gavin Newsom, pricing him at a 37% probability. You compare that to someone like AOC at just 9%, it's not even close. The capital is clearly consolidating. And just to show you how significant this is, look at the volume. We're seeing nearly $29 million on the Democratic side versus less than $8 million for the Republican nomination. The focus, the conviction, it's overwhelmingly on one side. Now, on the Republican side, it's a totally different story. The market has J.D. Vance at basically a 50-50 coin flip. So you've got this higher certainty on a single candidate, but with way less money behind it. It's a completely different type of bet. You know, if you want insights like this the second they break, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Okay, that political picture is pretty clear. But things get a lot more complicated when you stack it up against what the market is saying about the economy. And frankly, this is where we see some huge disconnects. So check this out. The market is pricing in an 81% chance that the Fed cuts rates exactly 3 times in 2025. I mean, that is an incredible level of certainty. So you'd think the stock market would be set to rally, right? Well, nope. The same market is only giving a 30% chance that the S&P 500 closes above 6,800. So what's going on here? And just to be clear, this isn't some small poll. This is a high-conviction bet with nearly $13 million on the line for that very specific outcome of 3 rate cuts. The market is putting its money where its mouth is. And here's the answer to that puzzle. The market doesn't see these cuts as fuel for a rally. It sees them as a reaction to a problem. The core belief here is that the Fed will be forced to cut rates because the economy is slowing down. That's why there's so much pessimism around the stock market. It's a defensive move, not an offensive one. We're always posting real-time updates on these kinds of market shifts on Twitter, so give us a follow there. All right, now for my favorite part, the outlier. This is where we look for those low-probability, high-impact bets that show us what the really smart money is hedging against. So, if the consensus is a slowing economy and predictable politics, where are the contrarians putting their money? Right here. This is a wild one. You've got a multi-million-dollar pool betting that Donald Trump will create a national Bitcoin wallet. I mean, talk about a radical, outside-the-mainstream idea. And again, we're not talking about a few bucks. This is almost $2.5 million being wagered on this very specific and pretty disruptive policy change. That is a ton of cash for something so far-fetched. So here's the takeaway. At only 6% probability, this isn't a prediction. It's not a bet on what's likely. It's a hedge. It's like buying insurance on a low probability event that would have a huge impact if it actually happened. It tells you that a slice of the market is taking this disruption very, very seriously. If you want to catch more of these signals, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Okay, let's zoom out and pull all of this together. What is the single story this data is telling us about 2025? Well, a pretty clear picture emerges. On one hand, you see a ton of certainty around the big established players, political frontrunners like Newsom, tech giants like Gemini AI. At the same time, you have this widespread agreement that the Fed's going to have to step in because the economy is cooling off. And then underneath it all, you have these big strategic bets on wildcard black swan events. If you boil it all down, it comes to this. The market is getting ready for a slowdown, but it's also buying insurance against some really radical changes. So the big takeaway is that the market is showing a ton of confidence in the mainstream path, while at the same time, it's making some very specific strategic bets on the fringe. That's the real signal here. Subscribe and drop a like below. Follow us on Twitter for more updates, and we'll see you in the next one.